Asia-Pacific's premier trade event platform on Industry 4.0, called the Industrial Transformation Asia-Pacific, is a high-level strategic platform shaped by industry leaders and experts to support the digitalization journey of manufacturers. I recently attended the event and I listened to a conversation that was presented by Mr. Graham Conlon, the Global VP for SAP Digital Supply Chain and Manufacturing. Here are some of the highlights of the conversation.
I picked up a couple of words in the question and I picked up a couple of words in the answers as well. And the things I heard was, is it technology driven and is it hype? So in terms of the technology driven piece, I think at SAP we would like to think that actually this is not technology driven, this is technology enabled. And I think if you think about Industry 4.0, you mentioned where it came from. But if you look at the name, the 4.0 refers to the fourth industrial revolution. So I would encourage you to think about the first, the second and the third and ask yourself the questions, were they technology enabled or not? And actually, I think what you'll see is that they're actually business enabled. I beg your pardon, they're business driven, they're technology enabled. They were market driven. Things changed with steam, things changed with electronics, things have changed with cyber-physical systems. So the interactions I have here and around the world, it's no longer about technology driving this discussion. It's about real people who run real businesses, who manage real P&Ls, saying how do we digitize what we do and how do we use that to deliver competitive advantage. So that's the kind of my response to the enablement versus driven topic. In terms of hype, apart from the obvious need to update our LinkedIn profiles, I think the important thing was I saw the pyramid that came up earlier on, and the pyramid referred to the different levels of maturity. And what I would say I've seen since 2011, when we were talking about this, in 2018 we're doing this. And if you look at the profile of that pyramid, it has shifted massively, and particularly in Asia over the last 2 years. It's moving to become much, much more top-heavy. So there was a time 2 years ago where it was only really the early adopters. We didn't yet have the trailblazers who could stand up and say, this is a real facility, we're managing an end-to-end process, it is truly digital, and these are the benefits that we are seeing as a result of that transformation. So for me, I think, like anything, there is always a degree of hype, and there's always a community of people that will see this as the next big thing. I think where we are, if we look at it globally, we are past the hype stage. We have real world-class companies who've already implemented and adopted these technologies. And I think why I'm excited about this first conference that we're doing in Singapore is we have an opportunity to really learn from those experiences, some in Asia, I would point out, and some in the broader globe, and then start figuring out what does that mean for the very specific needs, in some cases, of individual markets within Asia Pacific. I think we talk about Asia Pacific. Asia Pacific is a very, very big place. And we have parts of Asia Pacific which have very, very mature and expensive facilities and workforces. We have parts of Asia Pacific that have a very, very different model in terms of labour needs. So I think for me, what's different in this part of the world, it's not Asia Pacific, it's really about understanding the industry and the market that customers are operating in. And I think I can see areas where we have very mature, and you can draw lots and lots of parallels between perhaps some of the work that's been done in Europe and North America. I also see some areas where they have very specific challenges, but also huge, huge opportunities as well. And for me, it's really about just taking some best practices, understanding what enablers are in place, and then figuring out how they really can be deployed within the market you're operating. Motivation can be very, very different. I'll just give you a couple of examples. There's one organisation that I know of, a successful multinational organisation, where they just decided to create the role of a digital transformation officer. Okay, they did that. And I asked the person who is their digital transformation officer, who decided? And he said, the CEO decided. And I was like, okay, why did he decide? He said, I don't know. But he told me I had to do it, so I did it. And his remit was a small team of data scientists, a small team of Industry 4.0 savvy people to just go around the business and look for problems. And that's what they did. And they started with a small project here, a small project here, and a small project there. And that whole department is growing exponentially within this company now because they're starting to join up the dots. So it's a kind of a top-down approach to motivation. They knew they had issues. They had issues with cost, they had issues with disruption in the industry that they were in, and they knew they had to do something. They didn't really know what. So they were the beginner, and I would say they're potentially now certainly approaching the trailblazer level. There are other organisations, their motivation, they are absolutely terrified of disruption that this technology could bring. There's a company in Japan that makes AGVs, and you might think, okay, that's not an industry that's going to be too heavily impacted. They've looked into what their AGVs move around at ports, okay? What they move around is stuff that today is starting to be 3D printed, which means they're not going to need AGVs anymore. So these guys are terrified of this whole issue around the disruption that digitising somewhere else in their value chain has caused. So these guys are going flat out to look at introducing new business models and using digital transformation to deliver on new business models. So again, lots and lots of different motivations. All of them sooner or later come down to an ROI or survival, but different reasons for starting. Different reasons for starting small, but ultimately moving up this maturity curve. So that's what I've kind of seen just based on my experiences. It hasn't been, let's look at an index, work out where we are, and then decide what next. It's been, we need to go in and get muddy. What we've seen in these companies that started these journeys many years ago, they started with their projects, they started small. And you use some words about, why do you do it? And you get to the point where you can take actions, but perhaps there's an issue with data integration which stops you. And that's what companies are seeing right now. They started small. They said, we've got this really clever machine, and it's got some really clever sensors. So why don't we store all that data, do some really clever analytics on it, and it will tell us about the machine. What we're seeing now is the companies that did that 5 years ago are now saying, you know what, we've pushed that as far as it can go. To truly take the next step, we need to know what the machine next door is doing. And then we need to understand what the supplier for the components to the machine is doing. So this whole beast is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think start small, you can demonstrate real business case ROIs at a small level, but be planning for what's next. Is it machine to machine? Is it top floor to shop floor? Is it full value chain integration? So that's the kind of approach that I'm seeing. And that, as a person that works for a technology company, that's had kind of massive impacts in terms of what we do. So it's no longer just about clever analytics which will say something's wrong. It's now about having a true platform that supports the end-to-end enterprise and a true platform that actually predicts what's going to be wrong and also provides solutions. So true Industry 4.0, it's not just about IoT, it's not about connecting, it's not even about driving visibility and transparency into a process. It's about predicting what happens next, and it's about proposing what to do based on the predictions. So that, for me, is really kind of where we're going. But it all starts with the clever machine with the clever sensor. And that's why I think, coming back to what we're trying to do with this event, everybody in different industries and different companies is at a different level of that maturity. But we can help with a discussion about where do you start with that small project, what machines are relevant, what processes are quick win, high value adds. That's the sort of discussion which I think the bit where you exit the consultancy area, when you exit the forum, I think they're the discussions that should be had in there.
If you want to learn more about events like this, just go on to astroawani.com or awanireview.com and search for the interviews there. This has been a presentation of Awani Review.